So the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, today accused opposition parties in the country of orchestrating the protests that took place simultaneously in Kano and Niger State on Monday. The allegation comes barely 24 hours after angry youths and women took to the streets of Minna and Kano to protest what they described as a rising cost of living in the country. Well, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar said that President Bola Tinubu's economic policies are dashing hopes, creating pain and causing despair among Nigerians. Of course, we've been hearing explanations on the floor of the National Assembly today. The president team have been defending the actions of government in respect of what we see today, and they are explaining that things have been very difficult just before the President Tinubu administration took over the arms of affairs, and that going forward, there are promises now being made of how things will ease. In fact, the CBN governor was promising that the inflation rate will drop. We'll be getting more reactions, and we'll be showing you some of these as we go on the program. But let's get to talk about the relationship and the debate between the APC, the ruling party, and the opposition. I'm being joined tonight by the spokesperson of the All Progressives Congress, APC, the National Publicity Secretary, Mr. Felix Moka. Thanks so much indeed for coming tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It does look like your party is really very unhappy with the manner in which and the approach, the criticisms coming from someone like the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and some opposition figures about the state of the economy, which in turns make a lot of people feel maybe things are not hard for selected few in the country. Maybe the hardship is just picking those who to inflict pain on. Is that a case? Or, I mean, what exactly is the explanation of the APC?
Thank you very much. Now, first, before I say anything, I mean, I want to recognize, because I think sometimes when you speak from, the platform that I represent, people tend to think, you're trying to hedge, you're trying to be defensive in politics. But it's not about that. There's nobody in our party, beginning with the president, the national chairman, to the least member of the party, who is not aware, keenly aware of the enormous difficulties that our people are going through at the moment. Things have been rough, things are difficult. Many of our people, especially those, in that lower, bracket, are struggling severely to cope with, the current, rise and hike in a whole lot of aspects, in the economy. That is the fundamental business that this government is looking to address. What are these policies, Sheung? Why did the government even feel the need to intervene as it did? Because the fundamentals were aching and aching badly. The distortions in the economy were severe and threatened the very foundation of our economic life. So this government intervened. And when that happened, the president made it very clear that this would produce some difficulties for our people. And clearly, those difficulties are here with us. People are living that reality. And we understand that. We know that this is not easy for our people. But the government itself is not resting. The government is doing everything that it can do to arrest this situation and reposition the economy to do better for the good of everyone. Now, talk about the opposition. Part of the concern we have is that, opposition politics is not necessarily just about condemning. These, individuals, Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, for example, campaigned for this office of the president. Some of the key, economic, policies that this administration is implementing currently were also, touted by them to be at the core of their own economic, agenda. So what has happened? So it's not enough to just condemn. These leaders should be able to, assuming they have that silver bullet, that they say this government is not deploying, point it out
Yeah,
and take credit for it.
We take it one after the other,
Yes.
and we look at the issues without having to put politics into it.
Correct.
So first and foremost, I would like you to Tanaji, because you speak for your party, and your party pitched President Tinubu to Nigerians in the renewed hope agenda. And a lot of people will be asking questions. Is this what you preach to us? Is it the kind of thing that you were preaching to us? For example, let me show you a snapshot, for example, of the prices. Yesterday, my guest and I were discussing this, of the snapshot of the price of commodities. And it will tell you the state of things about 8 months ago before President Tinubu took over. And now you look at the basic commodities that Nigerians consume. If you look at it right there on your screen, it gives you a very, some prices have gone as much as 80-something%. Rice, you can see about 80% increase in the change of it. Flour, cost of beans, onions is the only, palm oil is the only one that is different there. All of the major commodities, even to cement, have gone almost twice the price since your government took over. And so that's a question that a lot of people will be asking. Is this the renewed hope agenda that you promised Nigerians?
Very much so. See, no. My point is this. What you're saying will be so much worse, but for the interventions that this administration, has brought to bear on the economy. What you're saying is completely transient. It's temporary. There's no economy. We all speak about the need to reform the economy of this country. There's nobody who will embark on that program of reform where these figures will not reflect as they are. It's not doable. It's not possible. Which is why there's no economist who has come out in this country to say, for example, that taking out the fuel subsidy was a mistake. Nobody, I've not heard anyone articulate that argument to suggest that, trying to harmonize the, exchange rates in the country was a mistake. Because, everyone else who campaigned in that election season actually also, promised to take those same, actions. So inevitably, what we're witnessing is a transient, consequence of deep, thought out policies that are meant to produce a lot of good.
So the economy was in shambles before the Tinubu government took over. Is that right?
See, those are not my words. What I'm saying is that this government took off from the previous government with fundamentals that were, work in progress, that were not where they ought to be, by the standards of our expectations. It was not. This president, came into office and hit the ground running. The problems that many of the governments before, not just the previous administration, but the previous administrations, that they did not do, could not do, perhaps, this government took on those difficult questions. That is what the government is trying to solve. And my point is that inevitably, implementing those policies would necessarily produce the achiness we're dealing with.
The point is, Mr. Moka, you know what the handlers of the economy said today in full view of cameras?
Correct.
And they described a terrible state of the economy. They described a worst-case scenario that Nigeria could have ever found itself. And that they are saying that the Tinubu government is trying to walk Nigeria out of those quagmires.
Yes.
So the question will be, it's your same party that was in power that dragged Nigeria into this mess, that dragged Nigeria into this economic hardship, that dragged Nigeria into this economic quagmire, and your party is also saying that you want to take us out. How can the average Nigerian believe that your party can do such a thing?
First of all, you know as well as I do, and I'm sure that many of those who are listening know that a lot of the problems we're dealing with today, that Buhari dealt with, some of which Jonathan dealt with, and the governments before Jonathan dealt with, were problems that were generationally created. We have run an economy since independence that's based on a single item as, the money spinner for our country. Now, was it Buhari who, created that system, that order, that economic order? No, it was not. Was it Jonathan by himself? No, it was not. But these things were done, and created generationally for a country. Every individual, your good self, I'm sure. How many Nigerians today rely on just one single income? People every day struggle to create passive income, to create, a second, third, fourth income streams, just to augment and to make ends meet. How do you explain a country of over 200 million people that is exclusively reliant, almost exclusively reliant, on just one product, that is also liable to the vagaries of not just the domestic, economy, but also the international marketplace? Today, the CBN governor reeled out a lot of, data, suggesting that under Jonathan, at some point, we were doing, pretty decently, with over 2 million barrels of oil a day. Under Buhari administration, for the combination of all the factors that were at play, we lost the capacity to produce. Now, this government came in, beginning to tackle those, systems, and we're seeing our oil output rise again. So, this is not, there's no magic wand, and this government did not promise
Mr. Moka, let's not deconstruct the reality. There might be a narrative, but let us put the facts right for the benefit and the sake of our viewers. A lot of them who are very much aware when the Jonathan government left in office. And there's no one that is saying that Jonathan government was the perfect state, but we need to look at the state in which the Buhari government made things. That's when your party took over and what we have right now. Before the Buhari took over, pre-2015, inflation rate was 9%. It was at a single digit. Right now, it is over 20%. Unemployment rate before Buhari took over was 8.19%. You know what unemployment rate is? It's almost 34%. It's about 33.3% or more right now. The debt profile of the country, we cannot even, that is in a sorry state. Look at the exchange rate. Pre-Buhari, it was $1 to 197. Do you know what it sells at the parallel market today, Mr. Moka? It's almost 1,140. That is how, 400. 1,400. That's what the exchange rate is saying at the parallel market. I can go on and reel out the indices before your party took over. And so the question I'm asking is, yes, things are hard globally. Yes, a lot of economy are in shock. Even on the continent, there are pressures on their currencies. But the question is, Nigeria as a nation has been badly handled economy-wise, and that is what the indices are telling us. In the last few months, and I'm showing you the indices of the prices of commodity, which has aggravated the anger of Nigerians, that things had gone really bad since Tinubu government took over.
Sure.
That's the picture.
Sure. Under Buhari, why do we forget so quickly? Under Buhari, there was the global pandemic that created massive, unforeseen, unplanned crisis, not just in Nigeria.
That's 5 years into Buhari's government. That's in 2020,
globally,
2020.
Globally.
That's 4 years or more after Buhari took over.
But Buhari also inherited an economy that was teetering on the brink.
In the indices that are in the single digits.
Yes, because, see, look.
In that same chair you're sitting, Mr. Moka, there's an economist who told us right here on the program that the Buhari government dragged the Nigerian economy badly as much as 20 years backwards. That's how bad things were before the Buhari government stepped out of office.
That's based on his own, understanding.
The indices says as much as so.
The indices that he is looking at. Today we heard those who are managing the economy of the country. The outlook they projected today was, positive. It was not gloomy. They said that the worst may be behind us already. And that going forward, they're hoping for a drastic turnaround, both on the fiscal front and on the monetary side. That has got to count for something. The world economic institutions are not as pessimistic as even your assumptions.
So these are indices.
No,
I just read out realities, indices. These are not. I'm not an economist. I'm a journalist. I'm just putting out the indices to you.
Farmers in Europe,
Mr. Moka, do you shop here in Nigeria? Do you buy commodities here in Nigeria?
When we started this program, I told you that our people are dealing with circumstances that are difficult and challenging. Nobody's in denial. So asking me if I shop in Nigeria is not asking a question that actually says anything.
Because we are wondering whether
I'm saying
we go to the same marketplace and spend the same currency.
I told you at the beginning of this show, I acknowledged that things are tough. And they are tough in Nigeria, they are tough everywhere else. They're tough everywhere else. Farmers in Europe are barely going to farm. They're protesting vehemently, vigorously, challenging these same European governments who, by all the indices, are doing better than we are.
And we wonder what...
But things are still tough.
Your party made a promise. She will fix things.
Fixing things is not fixing things. This government has a mandate of 4 years. You see, why are we sitting here talking as though we're in the 8th month of the 8th year?
You spent almost 30% of the 4 years
because
already.
About 20%. No, see, you're not being... I don't think you've been, considerate of all of the factors at play here. This government is not, are we 1 year? We're not even 1 year. We're just a few months.
I'm giving you the mathematical picture.
It's unfair to this president.
That you are saying you have spent almost 20% of your 4-year term.
Listen, the 20%, look at the policies. I mean, are you looking at the input under this government? What they have done, what they have tried to do, the bold steps they've taken to tackle these fundamental problems. Because, see, you can look at the symptoms all you want. You can analyze it all you want. The president acknowledges, I acknowledge, the party acknowledges, every Nigerian, every economist who is looking at the same set of facts and data, they acknowledge that things are difficult. But they say that the policies that this government has initiated will, radically transform and reposition this economy to do better so that all of those things you're showing, all of those figures, in time will return, to positions better. Hopefully.
Mr. Moka. I will be the happiest person to see this. And we're having this engagement, Mr. Moka.
We need to have that engagement
because
with that in mind.
Your government, all the APC needs to be on its toes to do the right thing for the sake of Nigerians.
So what is the right
Let's look at the issues.
What is the right
Let's look at the issues that got your party angry in the criticism of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. This is one thing that he said. And like you to give us perspectives from his criticism. Let's show Nigerians what former Vice President Atiku Abubakar said. It was referring to the handling of the economy under the President Tinubu government. And he says Islam basically criticizing the manner in which the economy had gone in the past years. I'd like to quickly put out some portion of his criticism and his quote. He said that Tinubu's poor response to Nigeria's economic challenges is setting the stage for a prolonged and deeper domestic economic crisis. His economic policies drawn from a so-called renewed hope agenda are ironically dashing hopes, creating pain and causing despair. The private sector is shrinking by the day as small businesses are emasculated and as multinational companies confused and weary of the economy leave Nigeria in droves. Intense cost of living pressures has created more misery for the poor in towns and villages. Those are the words.
Just words. Words. Now, in all of that commentary, what did Atiku say and offer that made sense other than to condemn everything else? You see, look...
Are those facts?
No, they're not facts. Those are just opinions.
Those are his
opinions.
Okay.
Atiku has merely expressed his opinion based on, a perception that is fixed. according to his own, view, that is, completely jaundiced by his political, self-interest. That's what it is. And that's what we're referring to as some of those, incendiary comments that are not laced with any iota of rationality or reasonableness. He campaigned to be president. In other countries, people like him who ran for office, when they do not win, they offer specific, concrete policy proposals.
He had some questions
to address.
He asked question about
what?
About the policy of remittances of the NNPC accruals to the CBN. He was asking questions about the swap deal of crude oil product for some money that the government has asked. He said, where are those money? About 3.3 billion or thereabout. He's asking fundamental question. And it was a submission. He said, the Tinubu and his economic management team must swallow their pride, admit their missteps and failures, and follow those who know the terrain. They must act fast before the economy sinks deeper into the abyss.
So, again, those are just empty words. It's not enough for Atiku to bandy words. I just said to you, I expect a man who thought deeply, as he claims, about governance in this country, about the economy, about other aspects of our national life, to offer ideas, to offer, concrete suggestions. If you say the government is doing A wrong, what should the government, do? What is it the government ought to have done differently? You're not saying that. It's not enough to just, dismiss everything the government has done and say it's driving us in the wrong direction. That's what he's saying.
Apart from being an opposition,
that's what he's saying.
Is your party angry that people are voicing their opinion?
Nobody's angry about anything.
But what are you asking for in specific?
To who?
To those who are criticizing the policy of your government.
All we're saying is that, where we are as a country, that no one, not the opposition, not some, pundits who like to create and listen to themselves, people need to, refrain from taking advantage of the circumstances of our people today. The world over, Shehu, no country has ever turned the corner without difficult, periods. Is it Malaysia? Is it Singapore? What country has ever, sort of emerged from economic, crisis into sustainable prosperity? Is it Rwanda?
So are you saying that
in our backyard?
The Tinubu government has things covered? They've got it?
They've got it, and I think that, look, soon, a day soon, Shehu, I'm going to be back here on your show, where we are looking at a different set of data that shows progress. 8 months, 9 months, 10 months into the administration. I don't think anyone has certainly not Atiku Abubakar, has the right to make this sort of, dismissive statements, because this government is just, started out. Right. Some of the policies that the government is implementing, no one has ever tried it. Atiku Abubakar, when he was vice president, didn't even contemplate the depth of these policies that this government is implementing.
He was speaking about the issue of subsidy.
He did it.
He was speaking about some of the policy and how
he had the opportunity to take out the subsidy with Jonathan. They didn't. And they brought us to this mess.
Yeah. Let's close this conversation, Mr. Moka, in 30 seconds. What are you telling Nigerians tonight? They're suffering. They're feeling the pinch. Sure. They're feeling the hardship. In 30 seconds, what is your party telling them? That you have failed and you are going to fix things, or what exactly?
Sure. No. That the country is going through enormous challenges that require bold, courageous decisions, which this president has offered. And we're saying to them that these policies, naturally has a gestation period where they will begin to see the transformative impact of these policies that will come down to the dining tables and to the bedrooms and living rooms of Nigerians. My point is that our people should not despair and should not lend themselves to this manipulative, rhetoric of certain, individuals in the country who are taking advantage. And I think that's where I have an issue with taking advantage of, the circumstances. Because if we go over the edge, then we lose everything. And we don't need that. The people don't need that. Because it's not, going to serve their interest ultimately.
Felix Moka, the National Publicity Secretary of the APC, trust me, as much as everyone, the blood flowing in some of us are that of Nigeria. We are so patriotic that we want this country to be better. And we wish you and your party better because you guys are the aim of affairs. Absolutely. And we're praying for our nation to be better.
It will get better.
But you guys need to get your acts together. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Moka.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. We take a break, everyone. But when we return, we'll be dissecting further the state of the economy. The President Tinubu's team got on the podium defending the economy and their policies. We'll be getting to hear from a very senior member of the National Assembly and a member of the People's Democratic Party, Honorable Fred Agbedi, will be joining us afterwards. Everyone for staying with us on the program. So the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, believes the country is on the path to recovery. He's saying that Nigeria was heading to economic disaster before President Bola Tinubu came into power in May of last year. The governor of the CBN, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, on the other hand, has assured Nigerians that the nation's inflation rate will drop. They were all briefing lawmakers at the sectoral debate on the economy before the House of Representatives. The CBN governor specifically says that inflation will reduce to 21%. Let's take a listen to, first and foremost, the finance minister.
To address exchange rate volatility, a comprehensive strategy has been initiated to enhance liquidity in the forex markets, and I made reference to the outcome of that earlier. This includes unifying FX market segments, clearing outstanding FX obligations, introducing new operational mechanisms for BDCs, enforcing the net open position limits, and adjusting the remunerable standard deposit facility cap. Honourable members, we understand the economic costs of these developments, not just for the economy, but also as they affect ordinary Nigerians. However, as I mentioned in previous engagements, these costs are temporary, and our decisions will address a lot of fundamental issues bothering Nigeria's macroeconomic landscape. Honourable members, these measures aimed at ensuring a more market-oriented mechanism for exchange rate determination will boost foreign exchange inflows, stabilize the exchange rate, and minimize its pass-through to domestic inflation.
That's the CBN governor making specific statement on what they were doing. But what about the finance minister? Of course, that's what I called for earlier. But this is the finance minister now. Take a listen to him.
The implementation of the 8-point agenda of the president began. We were in an unsustainable place in terms of the fiscal situation of Nigeria. We were on the road to economic disaster. We had expenditure which was wasteful and unsustainable by way of the subsidy, not just on fuel, but the subsidy on foreign exchange, which confused the incentive framework, and people were chasing cheap dollars in order to make instant profits. Of course, in turning back from that road, as we have heard, there will be dust. However, bold measures have been taken, and there have been positive results.
All right. Those were not the only two people who presented. The taxman, the FRS chairman, also did a presentation alongside some other people who are critical in making decisions in relation to the economy. Let's listen to a very senior member of the National Assembly, a member of the House of Representatives from Bayelsa State, a member of the People's Democratic Party, Honorable Fred Agbedi. Thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Shehu, and good evening, Nigerians and viewers.
I'd like to know the feeler. Did you and some of your colleagues feel relief after the presentation of these economic handlers?
Shehu, I think it's too soon to say that we had some sigh of relief. too soon to say that.
But from their presentation?
Today's interaction is the first of it all. And like the speaker, the deputy speaker who presided in today's sitting said, yes, we have gone this length today. We are going to invite you again. And then we shall hear from you and ask further questions. So it means that it's a continuing session. It was not just to start today and conclude today. However, we invited them because as the People's House of Representatives, we feel the pain that Nigerians are feeling. We hear the groaning of Nigerians from all nooks and crannies. And in the wisdom of the Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable Dr. Tajuddin Abbas, he felt and realized that we need to take this burden of Nigerians and then interface with the economic team. I think that was the reason why this session took place.
How
today.
convincing were they? Especially the CBN governor and the finance minister, because beyond the explanation and what some people would term rhetoric, the fundamentals of the explanation, whether or not you, the representatives of the people, agree with those realities or those indices they presented before you today.
It's not a time to draw statements as to whether it's convincing or not. As a matter of fact, nothing could have convinced anyone as at this session. The fact remains that you invited them to appear before you. They will tell you what they are doing, what they have done, or what they intend to do. Much of what will eventually be assessed by the House of Representatives is what they will be doing and the results that will be dropping. If we have positive results speculating, then we can be able to judge and say, yes, we are convinced that you are doing it right. As at today's session, I don't think that it was in the place of the House of Reps to give anybody a clean bill of health. That was not the essence of it. We needed to hear from them. We needed to know what they are doing. What do they intend to, how do they intend to achieve the policies that they are bringing on board? Take, for example, when you remove fuel subsidy, you know that there are going to be attendant challenges after the removal of fuel subsidy. And then, Mr. President, the government had promised palliatives, government had promised buses, transportation to ease costs of movement, gas-fired buses, and all that. Chenwu, you and I know, and the House of Reps understands, that most of these palliatives that were promised has not been delivered to Nigerians. So if most of these palliatives promised had not been delivered to Nigerians, we couldn't just sit there and give a clean bill of health. But to call them to account, what are you doing? What will you be doing? When do you intend to bring succor through the policies that you are driving?
Honorable Fred,
I think that was the essence of today's session.
I understand that some of you and your colleagues shared palliatives to your constituents.
We have always shared palliatives.
No, but directly coming from the government, the federal government.
We are part of the government.
December.
We are part of the government.
No, I'm saying specifically, there was a package which we understand that every lawmaker, there was a certain amount given to a House of Reps member, certain amount given to every senator. Is that correct?
That is not correct. What I can tell you is that as members of government, as part of welfare for our people, there were budgetary provisions made for constituencies and senatorial districts and states. You remember that this government released monies to state governments to cushion the effect. In the same manner, allocations were made to senatorial districts and federal constituencies. And these were not allocations made for any particular House of Reps member. It was made for the constituencies. And the government awarded contracts to contractors. The facilitators are National Assembly members. And then those who distribute, hand over these palliatives to their constituencies were the National Assembly members.
Is it the usual every December?
Like I said, in every end of year, members of National Assembly, in one way or the other, give palliatives, support to their constituents. It's not the first time, and it will not be the last time.
So maybe
the difference
I just wanted to know, because if the federal government says they were going to give out palliatives as part of the fuel subsidy.
That is the point I wanted to make.
Yeah.
If you had allowed me, that's
what I was asking.
That I wanted to draw.
Was that part of the package?
That is part of the package. So it was not meant for a member of National Assembly to go get a particular amount of money and do whatever he wanted to do with it. No. But you have to supervise the distribution because you are the man representing the people.
So the National Assembly and the government delivered on that?
Of course, yes.
Every member
every constituency, every senatorial district, yes.
What was it? What does it entail? What were the items?
It was the same rice. You know that government has been buying rice, and the major things we have been distributing is either rice, grains, or whatever. And that was...
how many bags did you distribute?
Well, I think in my constituency, we received well over 1.2 bags of rice that we distributed.
1.2 million bags?
About 800 bags, and another 400 bags, okay, 1,200 bags that came that way.
To your people? Yes. Coming from directly to your constituency?
Yes, the contractor supplied them directly to our constituency.
And you disbursed?
Yes.
Now, give us an understanding of the explanation made today by some of these handlers. And what would you say was the fundamental problem that you discovered from their presentation about the economy?
Well, first, the understanding is that the economy from the previous administration to the present administration has really been bad. Particularly in this administration because of the removal of the fuel subsidy, which, if you remember, President Goodluck had wanted to remove. Maybe at the time Goodluck wanted to remove it, he had his own plans to cushion the effect of removal of the petroleum subsidy. Mr. President, in his promise during campaigns, said he was going to remove. And at Eagle Square, on the day of swearing in, he announced the removal of fuel subsidy. That was his first day in government. Whether he had sat to look at the issues, the kind of palliatives, the kind of cushioning effects that he was going to deploy immediately after you remove the fuel subsidy was the issue of debate. And of course, that debate is still raging because 6 months, 7 months into its administration, some of those promises that were going to be used as palliatives to cushion the effect, transportation and otherwise, issues of allowances, salaries and allowances, has not taken place. And so the Nigerian's economic situation is nosediving more and more. Look at what one of the presentations today, and a member asked this question. In June, you had over 1 trillion. In July, you had close to 2 trillion. In August, you had close to 2 trillion. By December and January, it has reduced to 1.0 trillion. By January, it has reduced 1.1 trillion. So something is wrong. Something has not been
What was the explanation?
Something has not been gotten right. And, well, I listened. I didn't get a clear explanation. Of course, you know, we are 360 members. Maybe 250 members are, at the sitting. Several questions are asked. Some are answered. some may not have been answered.
Let's find out.
And so that is why the process will continue.
I mean,
but what we are concerned about is that Nigerians are suffering. And that is why we call the team to come and speak to us.
There are concerns about the exchange rate and the manner in which this government says they want to approach in handling the challenges. Did the ministers or the handlers, did they tell you about Nigeria's exchange rate strategy and what are the long-term plan to accomplish the fixing?
First, the minister said that the CBN governor said that as yesterday, over $800 million transaction was done, which was first in history. And that shows that there was going to be a better future being expected from that transaction, business transaction, that went on yesterday. However, questions were raised that in this same administration, in this same last government, there were issues about dollar subsidy, where people took dollars at lower rates from central bank and then went to the parallel market and made humongous profits from them, which was also like petroleum subsidy, which was even better than petroleum subsidy. And in doing so, the value of the naira dropped drastically. And the question was raised, how are you going to reverse this system?
Did you get any explanation on that?
Yes, the explanation is that they are taking steps to stabilize it, and it is going to be stabilized. But when I particularly raised the question as to whether you have altered this dollar subsidy that happened in the previous administration as a CBN governor, whether you have put it on check or you have halted it, there was no answer to that effect. I don't expect that, like I said, because of the number of questions, there are some that we have skipped. But we feel that we are not there. We are very far from having the solutions there. We don't also expect that in 4 months of a minister or a CBN administration that you are going to fix these issues. But what we, as members of parliament, took into cognizance is that today we have a narrative. Tomorrow, if we continue, we will have another narrative. We will be taking notes, and we will be doing our oversight and checking your facts that you have tendered before parliament. So that if it is not helping Nigerians, then we come back to the issue of whether you have delivered or you have not delivered.
Yeah, I want us to wrap up on this note, and quickly, please. There are a lot of Nigerians who will be expecting to know what the feelers were. On the issue of the ways and means intervention, they created over 31 trillion naira criminal slush funds that was used to attack the scarce dollar resources between May 2015 to December 2023. Was there any explanation given in that respect?
So the issue was raised in today's session, and the economic team really also said that they are dealing with that issue. And they are trying to ensure that all that is dealt with in such a manner that we will be able to close that gap. How they are going to close that gap will be based on the policies that they are going to come out with. Again, as an assembly, we went further to say, yes, we have invited you to hear from you. We are also available to know the areas, the lacunas, in legislative interventions that we can collaborate with you to strengthen your policies so that you can achieve the goal. Because we are all part of government. We are all expected to bring good governance. And so we couldn't have been at different poles. Rather, we should be able to work together and see whether we are going to bring succor to our people, to Nigeria.
Honorable, thank you so much sincerely. And Nigerians really were monitoring what went on. Thank you so much indeed for the perspective and the insight you have given tonight. Honorable Fred Agbede, a very senior member of the House of Representatives from Bayelsa State, and member of the People's Democratic Party. Thank you so much, India.
Thank you very much.
That's our show for tonight. Many thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.